Joining me in studio, another candidate for Texas 19, Colonel Michael Bob Starr. Well, first, happy Veterans Day. Thank you for your service, and welcome to the show.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Chad. It's a real honor to be here to meet you and talk to you, and good morning to your listeners.
Well, I appreciate you being here today. You just had an event over at Texas Tech University, officially kicking off your campaign for Texas 19. How'd that go?
That's right. It's a big day for us. We started the morning in Lubbock at Texas Tech. We'll be in Big Spring around midday and then have a big event later on in Abilene. And I think we're off to a really good start here.
Yeah, you're going all over the place today.
Yeah. Texas 19 is a big district, and I think it's important to reach all of it.
Absolutely. You just recently retired.
I did. 11 days ago, I was a colonel in the United States Air Force and in command at Dyess Air Force Base, and retired effective on the 1st of November.
Why did you decide to run for Congress?
You know, that's a great question. I have spent 23 years defending the Constitution and serving our country, and to me, this is a way to continue doing the same thing. And that's what I'm going to focus on as a representative. I will keep defending the Constitution in Washington, D.C. through the halls of Congress.
What have you seen from current elected officials, not just in Texas 19, but all over in Congress, where you feel as though you are a voice that needs to be heard in Congress?
Well, I think Washington in general has let us down, to be honest. There's a lack of leadership and a lack of vision in what our country could be. And I am a leader. I'm not a politician. Obviously, Washington's full of politicians. They're not getting the job done. And that's why I think it's important for me and people like me to answer that call and to go to Congress.
What is there something in particular that made you go, you know what, I've got to do this. I need to run for Congress?
No, not. I'm not an issue focused person. There's no particular issue or anything that I'm motivated by. I am motivated by simply a passion to serve, and I think this is a good way to continue serving the nation and providing leadership where we need leadership. When
you look at Congress right now, and you see some of the things that they are discussing, and we're going to get into some of the issues throughout the interview today. One of those that you in this campaign, you're bringing to this campaign, obviously, is military background. Foreign policy wise, what do you think we could be doing better?
Well, I just don't think we've been aggressive enough in the Middle East. I don't think Obama has done what the American people need him to do, is really confront terrorism in a very strong way in the Middle East. We need to make sure our fight against terrorism remains an away game so that we keep our home field safe for our children and our families.
Does that mean troops on the ground? What does that mean?
No, I don't think so. I think we've learned in a couple of conflicts that sending a lot of troops on the ground is not a sure way to guarantee military success. But I think there's more that we could be doing with the application of air power in particular, which is something that I know quite a bit about, but not necessarily large numbers of troops on the ground.
Tell folks about your background.
Yeah, so I'm a B-1 pilot. I've been in the Air Force for 23 years. I have about 1,800 hours in the B-1 and about 600 combat hours, 50 different combat missions in 5 different airplanes, but mostly in the B-1. I flew in the very first night of Operation Enduring Freedom while the ruins on the World Trade Center were still smoking in October of 2001, and I was in the first formation of B-1s to enter Afghanistan airspace and dropped one of the first bombs on Afghanistan in that conflict. I've served for a total of 1,100 days in Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom. I went back and I was a planner on the Air Operations Headquarters during the start of Iraqi Freedom. So what the media called the Shock and Awe campaign, we didn't call it that in the Air Force, but I was one of the planners behind that, and subsequently served as the Deputy Chief of the Strategy Division for General Petraeus during the surge from 2007 to 2008.
With your background, do you think that if elected, one of the things that you'll be paying a lot of attention to would be veterans issues? Oh yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the most basic federal obligations, and one specifically given to Congress, is to provide for the common defense. And I think we do that by securing our border, by keeping our military strong, and by supporting veterans. When it comes to veterans issues right now, what changes would you like to see? Well, I would start with some of the tragedy and the mistakes that we've seen in the Veterans Administration has been a real tragedy and disgrace, and it's just unacceptable. And it seems to me like the Veterans Administration is an agency that is ripe for streamlining and refocusing them on taking care of our heroes. Visiting with Colonel Michael Bob Starr in studio from Abilene, obviously, leaving Dyess Air Force Base. There are those out there who will say, and I'm sure you've heard this already, this is a Lubbock district.
Right.
No one from Abilene's going to take this away from Lubbock, Texas. Why do you think they're wrong?
Well, so this is a West Texas district, and although I have chosen to make my home in Abilene, I have spent 23 years representing America, and I'm perfectly comfortable representing Abilene, Lubbock, Big Spring, Snyder, Sweetwater, Graham, all the cities in the big country in West Texas, and I think I can do that well.
Do you think it presents any kind of a challenge for you? The Lubbock candidates have to get known in Abilene and in Big Spring and other places. Does that present sort of the same challenge for you having to be known out here?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's just the same thing in reverse. Although Lubbock has quite a big population, and although the people in and around Abilene know me very well, obviously many people in Lubbock are hearing me for the very first time, and I'll work hard to introduce myself to them and convince them that I will be their representative, and I'm never going to be far from Lubbock.
Let's go ahead. Let's take the break. When we come back, we're going to continue our interview with Colonel Michael Bob Starr in studio. We have a lot of issues to get to, including immigration, border security, and, everything else that's really going on in the U.S. We'll be right back. Chad Hasty Show, KFYO. Back on the Chad Hasty Show, News Talk 790 KFYO. We are in studio with Colonel Michael Bob Starr, who is running for Texas 19, running for Congress. And during the break, he asked me, hey, you didn't ask the question that you've been asking some of the other candidates, which is, you've seen the approval rating of Congress, which is not good. Why would you want to be in Congress? Why would you want to deal with that?
Yeah, no. I got a couple of points I'd like to make in response to that question. First is the popularity of a thing has nothing to do with the importance of a thing. I've had the opportunity to fight in some very popular conflicts. As I mentioned, I was part of the first response, the first military response after 9/11, a very popular time to serve, very popular time to be engaged overseas. I've also been in Baghdad for the surge and engaged in an important position in a very unpopular conflict. And I'm proud of my service in both, even though one was popular and one was unpopular. Right. But I think the most important thing is that the kind of leaders you want are not driven by popularity. The leaders we want and need are driven by service to others and by the possibilities they see for achieving better things for everyone. And that's what motivates me.
There was an issue brought up in last night's debate, and I don't know if you were able to hear it or not when you were driving in last night, but this also, I think, touches Dyess Air Force Base, and that is military spending and how much the federal government puts towards military spending. You had one candidate last night, Rand Paul, who was saying we need to rein it in, bring it in. You can't be liberal on military spending. You had other candidates, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, even Donald Trump up there saying, well, there's a way to do this where we can still spend more on military. What, if in Congress, what plan would you like to see as far as military spending goes?
Well, the bottom line is that it is important to keep our military strong, and we need to be strong enough to reassure our allies, to deter our adversaries, and most importantly, to defeat terrorism where it originates. We need to keep terrorism an away game. We need to keep our home field safe.
You, obviously, when you were serving in the military before you retired, you weren't able to talk about issues, Republican issues, basically.
Sure.
You're running in the Republican primary.
Yes.
We had a caller who called in and said, hey, would love to know your stances on some of the social issues.
Okay.
That will be brought up. One of those, of course, would be the issue of life, the issue of abortion. Tell our audience where you stand on that.
Yeah, no, so I believe very strongly that life begins at conception, and that should be the starting point of any conversation we have about this. Some very, very strong pro-life. I do not believe in exceptions for rape or incest because I don't believe you should punish another person for something that somebody else did.
There was a recent debate over Planned Parenthood and federal funding of Planned Parenthood. Let's say you're in Congress while this debate was going on. And there was the threat of a government shutdown where the president would say, I'm not going to sign off on anything that does not include money that funds Planned Parenthood. The Republicans would be branded as those guys shutting down the government. Would you, as an elected official, be okay with that? Would you be willing to say, I can't approve of anything, I can't vote for anything that has money flowing towards Planned Parenthood.
No, so I have a lot of respect for Senator Cruz and other people of principle in D.C. who are willing to stand up for what they believe in and take a stand on these and other issues. I believe that shutting down the government should be a last resort, and what I would have preferred to see is Congress actually pass a bill, put it on the president's desk, and let the president take the action to shut down the government if he didn't agree with what the legislation, what the proposed legislation said.
If you were in Congress, though, would you vote for a bill that defunded Planned Parenthood, but it ran the risk of the president saying, yeah, I'm not going to sign off on that? It would be the president shutting down the government, but we all know how the media acts. The Republicans would be tagged with it.
No, I would not only vote for it, I would promote that bill and try to get other people to vote for it, too, because I think it's the right thing to do. Planned Parenthood has clearly lost its way, and although providing women's health services is very important, I think there are other organizations out there that are more capable and more focused on the real problem, not have not become distracted as it appears Planned Parenthood has.
You brought up the border earlier.
I did.
As something that was strategic. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about border security and immigration.
Okay.
What are your views as far as immigration? Obviously, that's a big topic right now in the presidential debate, but it flows down to Congress. Mm-hmm. So what is your plan as far as immigration goes?
So I'll start with by saying that I think one of the first things we need to do is really separate these two issues. Immigration and border security are completely separate, and we need to treat them in the right order. For centuries, people have immigrated to America seeking freedom. But the truth is you cannot have freedom without security. And by not focusing on the border, we are undermining and eroding the very freedom that they're coming here to pursue. So we need to get the border secure first. An unprotected border is merely a gateway for criminals and terrorists, and we just have to do a better job. And the other thing we have to do is we have to get beyond talking about a wall. A wall hasn't been an effective way to defend territory since about the Middle Ages. So a wall can be part of the solution under the right circumstances, but we need to draw from the military's experience. Defending the border has been an essential element of every military campaign I fought in. So I know how to do this, and it's not merely with a wall. It includes the smart application of techniques and technologies, and I think we can draw from some of the things the military's learned protecting other borders to protect our own border here at home.
You bring up a wall. Obviously, that's an issue.
Sure.
And you have one of the presidential candidates who says we're going to build a tremendous wall on the border if he's elected. Is that something that should be done in addition to what you're talking about, other strategic plans, or should we say, okay, a wall in certain places is fine, but we need to focus on other strategies?
Yeah, definitely more of the latter. I think a wall under the right circumstances, in the right context, can be an important part of a security plan. When I was at Baghdad, we had those big concrete barriers all over the place, and they served a very important purpose. But it's not the be-all, end-all, and you can't stop the conversation about security by talking about a wall.
Let's talk about immigration. You wanted to separate those issues. Yeah. So where do you fall on immigration?
So I think that we need to we need to have a discussion about immigration. I think that we definitely need to send the criminals and terrorists need to go home. I mean, they have no place here in America, and then we need to decide what to do about the rest. But I do not support and will not support any sort of amnesty. But I think we need to do a little more talking about this as a nation to figure out what's the smart way to do the right thing for our nation and for the people that have come here truly seeking freedom and prosperity.
Do you think it is reasonable to say we can send anywhere from 5 to 12 million illegal immigrants, or whatever the number is today, back to their countries?
I have not heard a reasonable plan for doing that up to this point.
And your plan, you said no amnesty. Mm-hmm. So does that mean, okay, we're going to put you on a pathway towards some would say pathway towards citizenship. Others say no citizenship at any time, but you can work, pay taxes, and live here, and that's it.
No, before getting into that level of detail, this is an issue where I'd like to have some more conversations. And as I said, I've been very focused on the Air Force and defending America for the last 23 years, and I'd like to hear some other points of view about this before taking a final stand.
One of the other big issues out here in this district is ag. Tell us a little bit, and you know where our ag producers who are out there listening to the show right now. Tell them a little bit about maybe where you stand on some ag-related issues, and what they need to hear from you.
Okay, well, that's I appreciate the opportunity to address that. As I've said earlier, I've spent a great deal of my life focused on the Air Force, and I'm not a farmer, not a rancher. I've flown over many of the farms and ranches in West Texas, spent a lot of hours in the air over them, but I don't think that qualifies me to call myself.
They're very
a rancher.
Nice from the air, aren't they?
Yeah, oh yeah, they're beautiful. The green circles.
Yeah.
But I look forward to hearing from the farmers and ranchers out there about the challenges they face and the things that the federal government can do to help them. It's an enormously important issue. It's not just economic; it's cultural. I would argue it's also national security. Our food security is an important strategic advantage, and we need to maintain that advantage. And I intend to do that by following Congressman Conaway's lead. I think he's done a great job on this issue.
Congress has debated. This goes back to immigration. Congress has debated sanctuary cities recently, and it was defeated. I believe it was called Kate's Law. That was defeated in Congress recently. If you were in Congress, what would you try to do, or maybe join in with others as far as sanctuary cities go?
So sanctuary cities happen when people don't enforce the laws that are already on the books, and they're not good for America. We need to stop the practice, and we need to hold people accountable when they don't enforce it. When they're in a position to enforce the law and they don't do it, they need to be held accountable for that. We need to eliminate sanctuary cities.
Visiting with Colonel Michael Bob Starr here in studio. What are some of the, and you said you don't have one or two or necessarily three different issues. Obviously, military is going to be big with you, but what are some of the other things that people have maybe come up to you because your name has been out there for a while now as running, even though not officially running.
Yeah.
So what are some of the top issues that people are coming to you and talking to you about?
For me, this all begins in the Constitution. I've spent a career defending the Constitution. I'll continue doing that in Washington, and one of the basic obligations of the federal government, and two that are specifically given to Congress when in the article that gives them the power of the purse, it says that they have that power to provide for the common defense and promote the general welfare. I will focus on providing for the common defense by securing the border, keeping our military strong, supporting our veterans, as we've already talked about. When it comes to promoting the general welfare, I think it's important to reduce federal regulation, that we need to continue promoting agriculture and energy, and we need to pursue sound conservative fiscal policies like balancing the budget, keeping taxes low, and simplifying the tax code.
You have obviously seen this divide among the Republican Party. Some say, you have the fighters versus the guys who compromise and just kind of go along. Where do you think you would fall into this category?
So I've made a career out of fighting and marching to the sound of the guns. I mean, that's what I know how to do, and that's what I'll continue doing. I think the areas where you should compromise should never include sort of your core values and what you really believe in, and I'll never compromise on those. Are you hearing that from voters, out in Abilene and in the Abilene area, that, hey, we want this fighter mentality to go to Washington, D.C. and to fight for principles? Because you look at some of the victories that Republicans had going back to the midterm elections. There were a lot of voters who were very excited about, okay, we got a Republican majority, obviously, in the Senate, built up Republican majority in the House, and now they're just laying an egg. They're not doing anything. Yeah, no, I don't know if I would say I've talked to a lot of voters about it, but I can certainly see it for myself. I mean, we have sent a lot of conservative politicians to D.C., and we don't have much to show for it right now. And that's one of the reasons why I think it's important to get some non-politicians in D.C., people that have been out actually achieving results, and get that done. And I really think it boils down to leadership. But what I see is a lack of leadership from both parties, but I would include the Republicans in that too.
What's your read right now? I guess this kind of ties in to the election, but foreign policy issues and foreign issues, what we're seeing on the world stage. What's your read on everything that's going on right now in the Middle East with Russia, with Syria, with just everything that's happening?
Yeah, I think the world is a very dangerous place right now, and Obama just isn't getting the job done. He and Washington are letting the American people down, and they're letting West Texas down by not doing what we need in all those areas that you mentioned.
In about 40 seconds, tell folks what they need to know about Colonel Michael Bob Starr.
My name is Michael Bob Starr, and I spent 23 years defending the Constitution as an officer in the United States Air Force, and I am committed to continue defending the Constitution for the people of West Texas.
All right. Pleasure meeting you. Thanks for coming in today. And again, thanks for your service on this Veterans Day. Thanks to all the veterans out there.